are some of the pieces of surveillance that we also may not see, but that are really tracking us every day? And why does it matter?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as we said earlier, I think the boundaries between not just private and public surveillance are blurring, but also between federal and local surveillance, with things like fusion centers, which are really merging all of the information that can be collected by local police and sending it up the chain of command to the federal government. But if you are living in the United States today, you are likely walking past or carrying around with you street level surveillance everywhere you go. And this goes double if you live in like a concentrated urban setting or if you live in an over-policed community. And so you're likely to drive past automated license plate readers, which are going to photograph and record and timestamp your car every time you pass by a camera, private and public security cameras. And this is where it gets a little tricky because, even if it's a Internet of Things doorbell camera that you put on your door, police can get a warrant, or they can request from you or from your neighbor that footage. Or here in San Francisco, we have business improvement districts, as many cities do, which put up their own semi-private, semi-public security cameras. And so you think, so what? So the store knows I come in. But the thing is that police can often rely on this footage to request and to bring warrants. And a lot of the manufacturers of this street-level surveillance technology are counting on it as part of their marketing because they've seen that police make very effective marketers. And so if they build a special interface that police have access to, they are more likely to go out to the community and sell it to stores or to homeowners associations to put up, because they know they get the benefit of having private surveillance that is readily accessible to them without having to go through the bureaucratic loopholes or having the city pay for it themselves. The facial recognition, ShotSpotter, which are these microphones in cities, which supposedly can detect and record supposed gunshots, although now there is increasing speculation that they have a high rate of false positivity for fireworks and car backfires. And the reason why all of this matters is because, on the one hand, they trigger more police interactions. And as we've seen, especially with communities of color, with immigrants, working class communities, police interactions often have violent outcomes. And so if a ShotSpotter misfires and sends police, armed police, to the site of what they think is a shooting, there is likely to be the higher chance of a more violent outcome if they get there and the kids who are shooting off firecrackers encounter these armed police who think they're going to a shooting. And this is the same for false positives on automated license plate readers and facial recognition, which police claim is just an investigative lead, right? It's just giving them a lead that they can follow up and investigate. But too often police get a supposed match and they go out and they immediately arrest that person without following up to see if they were even in the city of the day of a supposed robbery they're following up on. And the other way this affects communities is that when you put any community under a microscope, like some cities are under, in terms of just constant street level surveillance on every block via geolocation tracking or facial recognition or automated license plate readers, police are going to find a reason to arrest and harass people. Because a majority of what police do every day are not finding serial killers and terrorists. They're ticketing people for jaywalking, and they're arresting people for jumping turnstiles at the subway. And so if you put any community under the microscope that these over-surveilled communities are under, you're going to find a reason to harass, and ticket people. And this provides a statistical problem, because surveillance is part of the self-fulfilling prophecy, because the more you surveil people, the more you're able to ticket and harass them. And then the more the numbers look like that is a high crime neighborhood in need of more surveillance and policing. And so this really disproportionately impacts communities of color, vulnerable communities, and communities that are already over-policed.
Yeah, and of course, if you add machine learning onto that, you double down on the targeting. So it's one of the things that we all, I think, hopefully have learned at this point, that slanted data in, even more slanted data out of most machine learning systems. So. And what do you think about the kind of opening up of, I think, more and more awareness and more surveillance at a kind of hyper local level?
Yeah, I mean, look, Matthew talked about things like automated license plate recognition, and we've got all these cameras everywhere that are now networked. Those are being increasingly analyzed, not necessarily at the local level, but frames get sent when there's object recognition that's done locally that goes, this looks like a face. Why don't we send that face back to the mothership? And then you've got a timestamp indicator. This person was at this location, right? Or this face. Maybe we don't even have an identity. But then we see the face pop up somewhere else. Then we see the face pop up somewhere else. Then we see the face pop up somewhere else. And 3 years later, you have a perfect record of this person's movements. Anywhere that they interact with commerce, anywhere that they interact with a developed area. Maybe it doesn't have you at your home, but the minute you turn onto the interstate, your license plate gets on the interstate. And you drive 3 states over, you don't even have a phone with you, but your car turns off here, and they know you went from this place to this place generally. And then you go to the local, you enter the parking garage, guess what? You pick up another plate. Now they know here where you're at. And the whole idea is, should we compile records that are so comprehensive, they're held by so many groups? This isn't like, we're not talking the CIA. We're talking any company with enough money to pay a data broker to go, look, we just want the fire hose. We want all the stuff that you get, or at least the ability to query your databases, because we don't really care what it is. You interrelate it with something else. We saw this license plate show up outside our store at a strip mall, and we want to know how much money we have. We want to know what neighborhood. We want to go, is there a public record that this license plate, is associated with this house on, for example, like a Google Street Maps type thing. Notice they're starting to blur those now, but that wasn't always the case. Can we put this through an image search? Was this license plate photographed anywhere? Put your license plate number or picture in the back of your car into an image search prompt, and sometimes you'll get results. And when we combine this with faces, when we combine this with the presence of your phone, because remember, your phone is throwing off a lot of identifiers too if you don't have it super locked down. It's throwing off Bluetooth beacons. It's telling Facebook, for example, what kind of wireless networks are around you. Because you know how your phone always, you pull down that little lampshade menu and it goes, oh, which kind of Wi-Fi access point do you want to connect to if you're not at home, and even if you are at home. Well, those are a proxy for location, because all these wireless access points, they're radiating over the air. So these can be mounted, and they are mounted. People's app from your phone just report this, and if you have location services enabled at the same time you have this, and in some operating systems, you have to have location services to interact with these kind of Wi-Fi access points. You get this location information. Then they have a GPS fix for all these Wi-Fi networks. So then when someone else has their GPS turned off, but they are able to see Wi-Fi networks, they still know where you are, even with GPS turned off. And then you turn off all the location sensors on your phone, but the cell phone network still knows where you're at. Like we talked about before, like how does the network, you dial a phone number and that phone rings wherever it is on the planet, instant. How does the network know where you're at when you got location services turned off, right? When you have Wi-Fi turned off, when you have Bluetooth turned off, when you have GPS turned off, but you're still connected to the network, right? Well, you're registering to the nearest cell phone tower to you, saying, here I am, here I am. Your phone is constant screaming out to you, here I am, here I am. Is there a cell phone tower that hears me? And the cell phone tower goes, I hear you. You create a handshake, and then whoever owns that cell phone tower enters you into a register. It can be a home register if that's where you're frequently at, or it can be a visitor register if you're like often. But then they share this upstream. The phone globally knows where all phones are at all times. That's how they can signal to each other wherever you are, right? And location services doesn't turn that off.
Yep.
Because it can't turn that on.
And it shouldn't. I mean, I think that this is where, you know, we started off talking about how, you know, there are technical issues, there are legal issues, there are policy issues. Technically, I want my phone to ring no matter where I am. I you know, that's like one of the great benefits of modern technology. I mean, some people call it a curse, but that you can get a phone call no matter where you are. I want that to be it. And so that's an area where, rather than technical, there may be some technical things we could do, but fundamentally we need legal protections. And the good news is the Supreme Court has actually started recognizing that, you know, that just because you're out in public doesn't mean that there isn't some agglomeration of information or information over time about you that doesn't trigger a warrant requirement. Now that's some starter pieces, but that's an area where, to me, like when we think about all the tools in our toolbox, the technical tools are a little probably, they're not going to get to the place where I don't think where the company doesn't know where your phone is, because there's some ways we want that to be. But the legal protections can make sure that the company is very limited in what it can do with that information, especially when the government comes knocking.